local demographic data. And we are going to have Ms. Dan Johnson come up to please give us a summary that provides an overview of local population trends and potential impact on future Nelson County population and distribution.
So I apologize, I didn't get the slides to Wes early enough. And
Just put them.
You just put them up? Okay. So, but you do have a packet, more information on demographics in Nelson County that you'll ever want to have. But I can go along when he gets that up. But those of you who don't know me, I'm the Planning and Zoning Director here in Nelson County for all of the jurisdictions. So for the 4 cities and the county. I've been here for 18 years. This is about my 8th local planning committee that I've sat on between the 2 school districts. So I kind of tease Wes that part of my salary is pain and suffering for having to sit through 8 of these over the years. But and I know Stephen pretty well after all of these. So we do demographics every time we have a local planning committee, whether it is the city or the county, and we go through the same information every year, and it's probably just as dry this year as it was the last time. But the Planning Commission, this is actually kind of a timely meeting to be on this committee and for our county, because the Planning Commission is currently undergoing a review of the county's comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is our master plan for the county on how the county is to develop. So in addition to bringing this data to you, we're also looking at this data to determine how the county should grow, where the county should grow, and what constraints and issues that we have. And I was talking to Jim Brooks earlier. We've had forum groups, steering committees, public meetings, and it's been very interesting to hear the issues and concerns from individuals about where we're going to go in the future. But Nelson County has seen a substantial amount of growth since 1970. Most of that growth has occurred between 1970 and 2020. We have doubled our population in Nelson County. I serve as the census chairman for the 2020 census for the county, which we just went through that, and most of you hopefully filled out your census form. Between 1990 and 2010, in that 20-year period, our population increased 42%. It's a substantial amount of growth, and now we are at all of us, whether it's schools, the utility companies, we're all having to react to that growth. And that's what we're trying to look at in our comprehensive plan. The current 2020 population for the county as a whole, now the 2020 census has come out. That is only Census Tract data. It's at the tract level and the county data. They have not released any city data at this point. So what's that?
Which one are you looking at?
We're not looking at one yet, so I'm just talking. So at some point, hopefully by March, they will release the city level data, and we'll get down to the smaller block level data. But right now it's on a larger scale. So we're at 46,738 persons in Nelson County. The first page is dealing with our dwelling units by geographic area. The Planning Commission issues permits, zoning compliance permits for any structure that you put on the property. So we keep track every year, and we have to report to the census every year how many dwelling units are being constructed in the county. Obviously, since the recession, we have reduced that number. That number has decreased significantly since the recession. When I started in 2003, we were doing anywhere from 400 to 500 houses, dwelling units a year. We're now, as of today, we've issued permits for 279 dwelling units. That's high compared to what we've had over the last couple of years since the recession. We've been running about 200 houses a year. So we've kind of moderated on our housing market, but you can look through all of the information that we provided. The second map is our geographic map that we use to kind of identify where the growth is occurring, and that kind of coincides with the tables that's on the first page. So going area by area, obviously the one is the urban area. The Planning Commission looks at Bardstown not as its city limits that they currently have, but the area that they can expand into using gravity sewer. So that's a pretty significant area outside of the actual corporate limits of the city. But we encourage, the planners want to encourage growth, obviously, in that urban area. So between 2010 and 2020, 31% of our housing growth has occurred within that number one, that Bardstown urban core. Which is a little lower than what we would like. We'd actually like to see 45% of that growth to occur in the Bardstown area. And the reason for that is that you have the infrastructure there to accommodate that type growth with the roads, utility, and the sewer and the water. But we're running at 31%. The previous 6 years was 31% as well. So it's pretty steady on where growth is occurring. That urban core is quickly becoming built out, which is an issue for us in this comprehensive plan as to where the growth is going to now occur. We're seeing a lot of infill development, but those parcels of land within that urban core are pretty few and far between. And that's why we're starting to see some development go out in different areas. So go into the Boston area, which we're here tonight. 2010, 2020, we saw 5% of the dwelling units go in this location. One of the reasons that is low is this is a naturally sensitive area per our comprehensive plan due to we have wetlands, floodplains, and our knob regions. So those are obviously areas that we don't want to encourage growth in, and 5% is actually a little higher than what we would encourage, but we've seen that over the last 10 years. Number 3 is the 245 corridor, which is a natural growth corridor given the roadway and the hospital. That area, we've seen 18.7% of the dwelling units. One of the big developments is Corman's Crossing, which by the time it's developed out will have over 500 houses. And I'll go over how many houses we've got left in that subdivision. But number 3, the Kentucky 245 corridor, it will continue to be a growth area as it has been, as long as we can handle sewer. Sewer is a big issue right now in our county. So that line that runs, there's a sewer line that runs out 245 to Corman's Crossing in the hospital. There are some concerns about that from the city, so there'll need to be some improvements there in that corridor, but I'm sure that will be probably on the books, the planning books for that to be improved so that we can continue to see that as a growth corridor. 31E North, Cox's Creek is one of our areas that we would like to see additional growth in that area, but it's just not occurred yet. They're running at about 7% dwelling units in that area. One of the reasons is sewer stops at Delaney. So at Plum Run, Old Nazareth Road, that's the end of the sewer line. So until we can get infrastructure built out to Cox's Creek, we're still not going to see growth in that area without that adequate infrastructure. And then 5, Bloomfield, Chaplin, Fairfield area, 7.8, going down, it's 13.8%. There's been a reduction since the previous 6 years, and that's just, we've had Blazer Heights in the city of Bloomfield, that was 2003 to 2009, and then Copperfields, and then there were some issues with that Copperfields development, the change of developers, but we're starting to see that development start up again. So we'll see this area, the Bloomfield, Chaplin, Fairfield area, that will continue to be one of our growth areas. Again, infrastructure is a problem. If we want higher density development, then we need the infrastructure in those areas. 6 is the Woodlawn, Botland area. We've seen a considerable amount of growth on 605, Poplar Flat, Woodlawn Road area. One of the reasons that was started, for those of you who all remember, American Greetings went out there. Along with American Greetings went a sewer line, and you opened up that area with some development along Woodlawn Road, and then it came around to Poplar Flat. That area continues to be a hot spot for development. The 150 project will open up additional land. It will go behind 150 Quick Stop is what we're hearing. They haven't actually announced that, the final layout, but that's what we're hearing. And so if that road goes behind 150 Quick Stop, there is a significant amount of land there that can be opened up for development in the Woodlawn-Botland area. 7 is New Haven Road, or the 31E South Corridor, New Haven, Howardstown, Melody Lake, Nelsonville. That area, again, it's been one of our growth areas. We had a development on 31E just south of St. Thomas that was constructed that added quite a few dwelling units. We haven't seen that many. Again, we've got naturally sensitive areas with your floodplain and knobs, especially along the Balltown Road, Icetown Road area. But we have seen 11.52% increase, or 11.52% of our dwelling units in the New Haven, southern Nelson County area. So we're continuing. Like I said, we've got almost 290 house permits have been pulled, dwelling unit permits have been pulled this year. We're seeing kind of a change in where they were going from previous years. Obviously, Nelson County is graying with our baby boomers getting older. We're seeing them sell their farms and move to smaller areas. We're having a lot more townhouses being developed. We do out on Philiatry Lane. If you've been out on Philiatry Lane, there is a lot of duplexes and mixed family type developments being constructed out there. So the issue will be infrastructure, and that's going to be our main issue in the county, is where we go from here with infrastructure. As of today, we have plats in the office that have been filed for 425 new lots. If we're building at 300, if we're wanting to stay at the 300 level every year, we only have enough supply now. If all these get approved and get platted, we only have enough supply for a year. So there's a lot of uncertainty for us as to where growth is going to occur, how it's going to occur, and how quick we're going to be able to get these lots platted. I haven't had a major subdivision come in for quite a while. We're finishing out phases. So like Blazer Heights in Bloomfield, there's a new phase in Blazer Heights, which was 30 lots. Copperfields has another 100 lots. Corman's Crossing, there's another 123 lots. So total, we added up 425 lots, which will give us a supply for about a year's worth of housing if we're trying to stay on that 275, 300 range. So that's dwelling units. It's a pretty good indication of our population increase, obviously. We're running at about 2.3 persons per household per the census. So if you add those increase in dwelling units by 2.3, that'll obviously give you your population increase. So we're growing. We will not, the 2010 to 2020 population increase was only 7%. The previous 10 years was 15%. The forecast for us from the Kentucky State Data Center is to be about 8%. It's more moderate growth, which for me, that's a blessing because we need to catch up a little bit on infrastructure. The next page is census data. And again, this is coming from Census, so you can get all of this information online. The first table is 1970 through 2040, 1970 through 2020 census, and then the 2030 and 2040 projections. So hopefully by 2030, we'll finally top the 50,000 population. But again, we're looking at about a 7 to 8% growth rate with population. The next one is the Census Tract. So that's your next, the fourth page is your Census Tract map. Based on how the census divides it up. They are somewhat close, not exactly, but it's similar in areas on our dwellings. So going around the county again, starting in Bloomfield, Census Tract 9301, in between 2010 and 2020, there was a 2.64% increase in population. Under 18 is the growth rate for individuals under the age of 18. Unfortunately, there was an 8.4% decrease in children under the age of 18 in that area. And again, that's partially because there's no developments being developed in that area for housing. So you'll see some growth in that from Blazer Heights with those 30 lots, but until we start seeing some more developments in that area, the decrease in children will probably continue in that area. Going around to 9302, which is your Louisville Road corridor, east of 31E North, we saw an 8% increase in population and only a 1.92% increase in children under 18. And then 9302 is west of 31E, and that's 18.87%. That obviously is taking in Corman's Crossing. You've got some other Saddlebrook and other ones that are out, Blankenrod, those areas. So that's taken in those that population increase out on 245, and then a 6.3.2%. We will continue to see that area as one of our growth areas. Going over to Boston, only a less than 1% increase in population, a minus 4.6% increase in, or it was a decrease in children under age 18. New Haven was I was pretty shocked by this, that there was a minus 4% increase or decrease in total population, and then almost a 21% decrease in children under the age of 18. And then the Woodlawn area, you had a 8.6% population increase, but a decrease, 3.8% decrease. So some of this is attributed to the dwelling units and the lack of development within these areas. The other things that we can contribute it to is it's nationwide. If you go to the last page, which are population pyramids, if you start at the top in 2020, you'll see bulges in the population pyramid. The top bulge are the baby boomers, which were born between 1946 and 1965. That bulge are the baby boomers. The next one that you see, there's another little smaller bulge in the pyramid, and those are the echo boomers. Those are the children of the baby boomers. And so if you see the bulge at the top, you've got a huge increase in our age group there, and then their children are the next level, and then we go down. If you go down to the 2040 pyramid, you can see that we're starting to moderate there, and we're starting to become somewhat stationary. And so what this is indicating is that we have a high quality of life here, but our youth are not staying here, and we're not having younger families stay here. And so we're starting to see that decrease, and if you can see down there at the bottom, the children from 0 to 4 are now by 2040 are under the age or under 30%. So that, the thing that came up with a lot of our forums is, how do we retain youth in Nelson County? How do we keep them here so that we're growing, but it's just at a moderate growth rate. But we're, at some point we're going to see it become inverted if we don't start keeping younger families here, building developments to encourage people here, having amenities here to keep the youth here. So that's hopefully we can change that over the next 20 years. But that's typical in growth communities where we're near metro communities. I think one thing that's coming out of COVID are people wanting to move away from metro areas, and Nelson County is really attractive. In probably the last 2 weeks, I've had at least 5 calls from people out of California wanting to move to Nelson County. So every call I get, and realtors are calling, saying people wanting to move here. So the issue is we've got the demand, we just don't have the supply to keep up with it, and again, infrastructure to handle that. So where do we go from here in forecasting? 8% moderate growth. One of the things that we talked about today in a group, we have a great opportunity here because of Ford, the Ford announcement in Glendale, but we're not quite shovel-ready on a lot of things, so we're going to have to be really proactive in the next few years. We could see, New Haven is 30 minutes from Glendale, 31, jumping over to Hodgenville and going to Glendale. There's some opportunities for that end of the county maybe to benefit from development or from people moving to New Haven and driving to Glendale for the Ford plant. Obviously, we're going to try to go after ancillary or accessory factories that are associated with them. Where do you put those and how do we handle that? So we've got great opportunity, but obviously we've got some development constraints that we have to deal with. And that's going to be a big key for the Planning Commission and Eric for the fiscal court over the next 20 years is how do we handle that? So the other issues we have with development constraints in certain parts of the county, we have a lot of big landowners that are not ready to sell yet. So the developments we're seeing now, if you're seeing them throughout the county, you're seeing 10 or 20 lots at a time. And it's because the larger chunks, the larger land tracts are owned by a few individuals and they're just not ready to sell yet. So the days of seeing major subdivisions come in like a Maywood or a Woodlawn, those are probably gone for a while until we start seeing that ownership change in those large tracts of land. So, and obviously the cost of land, cost of construction, right now that's hindering a lot of people from getting in the development business. So that's where we are. We'll kind of see, and we'll, our information will be, it's going to be out there. We'll have public meetings, because we'll come out with a future land use map that will kind of show where and how we're going to direct growth and how it's going to be divvied out in the county, and we'll have that done hopefully by next July. So, entertain any questions.
I have two questions. The first one, you said regarding the Bloomfield Road corridor that it will continue to be one of our growth areas. Just confirming that corridor is continuing to grow.
Well, it's going to be moderate until there's a force main that runs from Bloomfield back to Bardstown for the sewer. Unfortunately, that's not designed to handle growth. That's always been a growth corridor. The question that we're looking, are there areas, there's been discussion of a sewer line from Bloomfield to Chaplin. There's been discussion about running a sewer line from Bloomfield to Fairfield. So that's on the table right now of what can we do to encourage growth in Bloomfield and New Haven. What can we do to encourage growth in those areas? Because obviously we want our towns to survive. And that's what we've got to come up with is how do we do that? So.
All right, and the second question, you said the projection by 2040, are you just not staying here? So
you can see in the numbers on the pyramids, you've got that college age, obviously they leave for college, and then they come back, and if I had a lady that was at one of our forum groups who said, I went off to college, I got a master's degree, but I couldn't come back here because I couldn't find a job. And she did because she had family here, but she said, I ended up having to clean houses. And she couldn't use her degree. Now she's finally gotten a job in that field and was able to stay here. Not everybody's that lucky. So diversification of our employment, being able to draw people back. We're heavily, bourbon industry, manufacturing, auto manufacturing. But how do we bring people back to Nelson County and have them stay here, have their families here? And so that's a big need that we have. So I don't know what the answer is going to be.
So just to throw it out there, using like your 30-year eye as your vision, do you think combining middle schools would allow students to stay?
That's not what I'm doing. I'm not going to give an opinion on that. Yeah, I do land use. That's not my thing. Not stepping in that one. Sorry.
Good questions. Does anybody else have any questions for Jan?
How soon you gonna get sewer across the street so I can get rid of wastewater?
Well, we have the last thing we want to do in Nelson County are have package treatment plants in every location of our county. But you know, that's what we're looking at if we can't get sewer lines running. We are really attractive to people, and I'm just getting calls everywhere from people wanting to do campgrounds, to short-term rentals, to other type of event facilities, and, you know, we run into issues pretty much on every type of infrastructure issue. So, yeah, Cox's Creek would be a natural area to have a sewer line. I think before I came, around the time that I came in 2003, they had completed a 201 facilities plan to run sewer to Cox's Creek, but I'm not sure exactly. Obviously, funding is going to be a big issue.
Do you happen to know the population growth since Thomas Nelson was built? By chance, what year that was? Does anybody have a clue? What year was Thomas Nelson built?
2010.
2010? Just curious how much we've grown since 2010.
You know, the key to our growth has been a lot of location. A lot of our growth has occurred people moving into Nelson County. I can tell you when the recession hit and gas almost hit $4 a gallon, that day of commuting was kind of, you know, people thought, wait a second, you know, this could happen again, and we're starting to see that creep back up. So once the recession hit, that's when I think our commuter days, I think we can get it back, because now that we've had COVID, people are trying to get out of the metro areas and wanting to come back in. But I think they still have that memory of $4 a gallon of gas and having to commute. You know, Paducah is doing a really interesting thing. They are offering incentives for people who are doing remote work now to move. They're giving them incentives. And so I sent it out to all of our elected officials, and I'm like, look at this. You know, Paducah's giving incentives for people to come back home. And if you're remote working, come home, we'll take you back, we'll put you in a home here. And so they're giving like a $2,000 incentive plus some breaks on cable and things like that. So we're just gonna have to get real innovative to get people to come back in.
That's great, thank you for that, Dan. Very detailed, just a very good presentation. No, if there's no other questions, we'll move